Singapore is the underdog, even though playing at home, needs to chase Vietnam. Today we are competing against Laos and Cambodia.
Yep.
And we are not guaranteed a win. During my time, Laos and Cambodia was for the strikers, the reserve to play. In fact, I'm actually looking for a Vietnamese player to take to one of the leagues in Europe.
Trước trận đấu tối nay giữa Singapore và tuyển Việt Nam, chúng tôi có một vị khách mời đặc biệt, đó là cựu danh thủ Sasikumar. Xin chào, tôi là Quang Thịnh và đây là podcast AFF Cup 2022 từ Singapore. Hello, Mr. Sasikumar. Nice to meet you and nice to have the time with the Zing for AFF Cup from Singapore. As you know that tomorrow Singapore have an important match with Vietnam for the two toppers in the Group B. What do you think about the strong form each team?
Yeah, it's first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show.
Yep.
Every AFF Cup I get invited on your show. It's really nice still to be remembered in Vietnam. Thank you very much. I'd like to say thanks to and hello to everybody in Vietnam. Looking at the match tomorrow, it's again this fixture, Vietnam-Singapore is always interesting. In the past, as you know, during my time, maybe we were a little bit better than Vietnam, but over the last 10 years, Vietnam has gone past Singapore in many ways. So going into the game, Vietnam is obviously the favorite to win this. Singapore is the underdog, even though playing at home, needs to chase Vietnam, and Vietnam has done some amazing things in in Asian football. It's going to be a very tough game for Singapore. Everybody knows that, no secret. But the question is, how are they going to line up against Vietnam? Are they going to attack Vietnam? Are they going to sit back? Are they going to defend deep? Which I think, if the coach has seen how Vietnam has played, especially against Malaysia in the last game, I would like to think that the coach will play a very, very defensive game. Maybe put as many players as possible at the back, and hopefully catch on the counter, and then surprise Vietnam. I don't see the Singapore team playing any different way, because first of all, I don't think so. We have the quality like Vietnam. We don't have 11 players that can play that kind of football, and especially against Vietnam, you don't want to play that kind of football. You're asking for trouble, right? So that's my take.
This morning, the head coach said that the surface or the fan is the advantage for the Singapore, but I don't think so, because you know that the fan in Singapore and Challenger side is belong to the Vietnamese fan. Yeah, they have bought a lot of the tickets. Yeah, so Singapore is not much advantage for the fan, but the surface, physical, the crash is very difficult to play with the Vietnamese team who just play with Malaysia in the national team at a natural crash.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think about that different the surface?
Yeah, I think that might be the only advantage for Singapore. If you ask me, even at this international level, I'm very surprised that they're playing in artificial turf. It should be on a natural grass. And if you look at all the other venues in the competition, everything is grass.
Yep.
Because of our stadium is not available, I suppose that's the downside of this. But that's also an advantage for Singapore, right? And it's not easy to play on the artificial turf. These Singapore players, they play week in, week out with their clubs on the ground, so they probably have a bit of advantage. At the end of the day, the turf only plays maybe 3%, 4% or 5% advantage. The rest, you need to have the players, the tactics, the personality to play. So I won't blame the coach for saying that it's a disadvantage. But at the end of the day, I'm very convinced, even though I'm a Singaporean and I wish to see our team win, it's very clear that Vietnam is the favorite in every way. So the field advantage is a very small advantage compared to everything else that Vietnam has got in this competition.
Yeah, the more important is the players. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
As the Singapore and the Japanese coach during last one and now in Mr. Takashi, you see what is different the play style of Singapore with the Japanese style?
Yeah. The former coach Tatsuma was my teammate in a club that we played here before. When they appointed him, I was a little bit surprised because he was at best a J2 coach.
Yep.
didn't have a lot of experience in the national team. But I must say, he kind of made the team play together as a team. He had some success. I would have imagined that we hired a better coach after he left.
Yeah.
But what we did was we actually went even lower than that. We got a coach that has no professional experience, no international experience, for whatever reason, and now he's here. So I don't think that going into a game against Vietnam with Coach Park on the other side, who's very, very experienced and won many things, clearly there's no advantage. There's clearly no advantage. I would think that it must be a stroke of luck for Singapore to win, because given everything that's player, coach, tactics, experience in the past 10, 15 games, you can see Vietnam is the clear favourite. So for me, there's no big difference between the past coach and the current coach. Past coach maybe brought the team together a little bit. This coach, this is his real first tournament. But if Singapore wants to achieve something at international level, we need to bring a coach of a much higher level.
Yeah, as you suggested before that, you suggest the head coach from Korean, from the Kim Do-hoon, yeah, for example.
Yeah.
Why do you, suggest that from the Korean coach? And as you know, Malaysia, Indonesia now they have used the Korean coach. What do you think about it?
No, I don't really worry whether which nationality, whether it's Korean, Japanese, Brazilian, Argentinian.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I think we need a good coach, has good experience of bringing players together, because a national team coach, it's actually a very tough job. He needs to pick the best players for the country, wherever they are playing, and bring together in a very short space of time. National team coaches don't have the whole season. They only have 5 days, 1 week, maximum 10 days to bring the team together. So a lot of the job they need to do is during the season, watching players, scouting and making reports and stuff like that, and knowing that when we bring players together, these are the players in my position. So I don't really think about the nationality of the player, of the coach. I only think about who's the best man for the job.
Yeah.
And if we have big ambition, when I say we, Singapore has big ambition at the international stage, we should go for somebody who's been there and done that. Who, for example, like Coach Park, he's very experienced. He was assistant to some big coaches.
It's suitable for Vietnam style.
Yeah, exactly, and very suitable for Vietnam style. So I looked at the last 2 coaches for Singapore. I don't really think they are very suitable for Singapore style of football. First of all, I don't think so. We have a style of football, so that's something that's sorely missing from my time. Every time a new coach comes, we change style. English coach, Danish coach, Japanese coach, Korean coach. We keep changing style, so which is not good for us. But at the end of the day, this is Singapore. We have a lot of limitation. We are a small country. We're not like Vietnam. We don't have the same passion for football like Vietnamese fans. We don't have.
Big challenge for
it's
Singapore.
Big challenge. As the country is developing, people have changed their way of thinking. They want different things. Sometimes sports and football is not in the priority. I mean, for the fact that you say that more Vietnamese fans have bought the tickets to the home ground game, tells you that there's
big love.
Yeah, I think we face a big challenge here in Singapore about what do we want to do with football.
As you sport manager, how can you improve the football in Singapore? Is the achieve for something?
It's very difficult to answer this question because, like I say again, that the priority in Singapore is not so much as sports. If we are to make the next generation better, we need to be in a place where there's the action. For example, in Europe. So now I live in Europe with my 2 boys who play in a academy in Europe because they want to pursue this life. When you want to pursue the life, you want to be a professional, you want to be top of the game, you cannot be here. Example, if the Vietnamese players want to be the best in Asia, they cannot stay in Vietnam. It's not possible. Even Vietnam is doing very well in ASEAN. They need to aim higher. Got to be Japan, Korea, Europe somewhere. So it's the same. For us, I don't think so. Is in Singapore today, our best player is playing in Thailand, right? And now we have 1 player in Europe. So to change this whole culture, we need maybe 10, 15, 20 players playing in Europe. Then maybe the fans get excited. Today, our league in Singapore is not really that exciting. Not very exciting. Not many fans and stuff like that. So that I don't think so we can change because that is the situation in Singapore. But what we can change though, because we can send our players overseas. A lot of parents want their kids to be professional. They will send overseas. They have the money to fund it. So I think that's what we should be looking at, and we should be encouraging more. I don't know whether it will happen. The government is also trying to make some changes, but let's see what happens. At least there's some project to help that to happen, but we are still very far away from Vietnam and Thailand, very, very far, in terms of trying to fill the gap.
But in the past year, Singapore have won 4 champions at the AFF Cups, and now, but you know that last 10 years, Singapore have nothing. What the different, policy or something, a situation last 20 years ago from now?
So I'll be honest, if during my time in '98 when we first won it, everybody thought that this is the turning point for Singapore.
Oh, yeah,
now that
correct.
we won, now we're going to get better, not in Southeast Asia, but Asia. But it's very clear that leadership of the association went backwards, and everybody went forward, we went backwards. Many things, I've said this in the past many times, I don't want to repeat myself, but at the end of the day, when football doesn't work, who do you really look at? You look at the association. You have to, right? When football doesn't work, they look at the association and see how the association is working. This is not being me critical of the association, it's the reality. If Vietnam doesn't do well, they will look at VFF. Mm-hmm. Now that Brazil got kicked out of the World Cup, they will look at the Brazil Football Association. Germany will look at the German football. So it's no secret, like when football fails, who they look to. And then they'll see if the system is working. Obviously, the system is not working. Otherwise, in the last 10 years, we had a progress. Actually, we went backwards. Today, we are competing against Laos and Cambodia.
Yep.
And we are not guaranteed a win. During my time, Laos and Cambodia was for the strikers, the reserve to play, and the strikers to score 4-5 goals to get the golden boot. Today we are struggling against Laos and Cambodia. So that really shows that they have caught up, the front runners have gone, and then we've just stayed there. And you cannot change this overnight. Football is a culture and generation. You cannot change this overnight. Though many people are trying to change it, I think it will be very challenging. And we'll see. You know, we won the first 2 games against Myanmar and we won against Laos. Yeah. These are not real competition.
Yes.
The real competition is tomorrow against Vietnam. And we'll see what happens, because the scoreline tomorrow will tell us how far we are away from. For all you know, tomorrow we might be lucky and we might pull off a result, because these things happen in football. Yeah. We've seen it.
As you say that you bring the player to Europe for back in the Europe style or something like Thailand, you know, Buriram, Boss. They send the best player to Leicester City.
That's right.
No need to play in the AFF Cup. Yeah. Do you think the AFF Cup is now underdog like before? Yet the club and the national, some club in Asian football no allowed to play AFF Cup because they won it many times.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question and a very good question, because as ASEAN football goes to the next level, as many players now playing in clubs in different parts, they start to think about what is important, what is the priority. So when you look at someone like Buriram, they said, okay, we've reached the level that we reached. Now we need to go to the next level. What does that mean? We need to put our players in a bigger league, bigger tournament. So the AFF Suzuki Cup, or the Mitsubishi Cup becomes a tournament that's not a priority, right? Whereas for fans in this part of the world, it's the World Cup for us. It's the World Cup for us. So I think the balance needs to be done, and maybe it's time that the AFF start to look at maybe playing these games during the FIFA games, because there are a lot of windows. Maybe it should be a year long, because they really need to make it relevant, and we need the best players and ASEAN players away coming to play. Because like I said, this is our World Cup. But if they keep going in the same format, I'm a little bit worried. Thailand will start. I think Malaysia has also a lot of the JDT players are not there, and a few clubs will latch on to this. And eventually, what will happen is that this tournament, the AFF Cup, will lose its gloss. You know, it will lose the importance because people are chasing. You know, maybe AFF has the ambition to be like that. Maybe the club owners have big ambition. So you need to find a common ground. You really need to find a common ground. You need to agree with each other to say, okay, we all will come together and make this happen. But how are we going to make this happen? As a fan, as a football fan in this part of the world, I want to see the best players play. From Thailand or Vietnam or Indonesia, I want to just see the best players play. Because I think the fans deserve it.
Recently, one of the son of the Fatih Hamas is transferred to Europe for playing for club. What do you think about this change?
Yeah, I mean, the boy is very talented. We saw that what he's done with the league. I think the father has also noticed that there's no future for him here. He can't play in this league if he was to achieve his dreams. To be fair, I think half a season he played with Albirex, he scored like 17, 18 goals. It also shows that while he scored a lot of goals, but he hasn't got a challenge. It's not a challenge for him. He's not struggling. He's scoring goals for fun. He's talented, but at the end of the day, like any parrot, I think any footballer wants to test himself in a higher league. So he's gone to Belgium second division. I hope he gets to the first division because that's where the real action is. Belgian first division is not the strongest league in the world, but it's a good league where there's good standard. Definitely better than Singapore. So I see it as a very positive move. A lot of more players need to go. We need at least 14, 15 players outside the country.
At the AFF Cup, you think that should be for the under 23 to play more than a national team?
No, I don't think so because we changed the format for SEA Games under 23. I think that's enough. At the end of the day, the fans in this part of the world want to see the first national team. AFF Cup, I think is important. It's an important tournament. But I think the organisers got to see it to be organised in a better time. Really needs to be organised in a better time where the best in the region are coming to play. They're free to play and legally they can play. So that's the challenge for them. That's the challenge for them to try and make this tournament relevant. I think that's very important.
Vietnam football have a lot of the talent players, but just few wanted to play in Europe or abroad and Japan, Korea. How to push it? I mean, to push not only the Vietnam and also the talent for Singapore, Indonesia to go Europe or Japan for improve the football in region.
So I want to say that my sons 9 and 11 now are with an academy in Spain. You need to bring the players early to Spain or to Europe. You need to send them early. It's very hard to send somebody who's 18, 19 to go and compete with the kids in Europe. When you're at 18, 19, you land in Europe and say you're going to try to get a contract. There's African players there. Yeah. The top African players go there. The best South American players go there. The best European talent go there. Then they have the talent from their country. So if you look at 4 or 5 category of players and then we got our ASEAN player going there, what chance do they have? It's very, very hard to break through. So I think the start has to be at 10, 11, 12. They live, they grow, they become one of them. And then they continue with the system. I think this is the only way I see, from my knowledge, that they're going to make a breakthrough. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging. As we know, in Southeast Asia, besides Thailand, which the league is competitive, every other league is not. Indonesia is so start and stop. Yep. We don't know what's happening. Malaysia has a decent competition, but not great standard. Singapore, there's 1 or 2 teams that compete, and the rest just participate, right? So I would think as a region, the federation's really got to start thinking about how early can we send our boys out, and now girls as well, out to Europe, where that's where the real action is. Yeah. That's where the real football happens. Even if you look at all the South American teams, the best players are playing in Europe. So we really need to find the key. We need to find the plan to get them there.
Your company, as your manager, what are you doing in the football Asia to improve or to connect the football region? Yeah.
Okay, so we are now working with La Liga.
Yeah, correct.
To produce one of the largest youth tournaments in Asia. Why are we doing that? Because we are looking for talent, right? My business is looking for talent. In fact, I'm actually looking for a Vietnamese player to take to one of the leagues in Europe, because I know that a lot of these leagues in Europe want Asian players. Oh. Why do they want Asian players? They want to expand the market into Asia. If you look at, they are in South America, they are in Africa, but they cannot break through in ASEAN. Oh, okay. They cannot break through in ASEAN. They cannot break through in ASEAN because they don't know how to, or they don't know how to. They understand the different football leagues. I'm very confident that we'll find one Vietnamese to play in this project. I'm very confident we'll find one Indonesian and one Thai. Well, I won't tell you yet, but after maybe the Suzuki Cup we'll release. But I'm actively looking to see who's
just one, right?
Yeah, just one to bring him to this league in Europe. So that's my job, because that's what I'm doing. I'm working with young talent, not just from a football perspective, but also a commercial perspective, to see how we can promote talent, because 600 million people in ASEAN, I'm sure we have good footballers. Now we need to give them a chance.
Quang, one of the most talented player in Vietnam, have rumors to transfer to La Liga is the last 2 or 3 years, but now he choose the French league to play. What do you think about this change? And but now he is not due to play in the team.
It's not easy. It's not easy. Actually, Quang was one of the players that I was looking at to see whether we can place him in Spain. I'll be honest, he was on our radar, and a couple of clubs were really interested in him, but it's not La Liga clubs because they cannot afford to sign a foreign player in the La Liga with one Vietnamese player. They just can't because it's a Sporting, and he was not up to that level. But I think one level below, or the level third division, it's still a very strong league, and he probably can play there. But he decided to go to Pau in France. Again, it's not an easy league to play. I mean, people say, oh, it's only French second division. There's a lot of talented players there. A lot of talented players there. Don't forget, a lot of the African players go there too.
Yeah.
Right? So Quang is up against a lot of talent. So I think, he's a wonderful player. He's an amazing player. He makes the difference for Vietnam or wherever he plays. He needs to find a good home. For how old is he now? 28 now? 28, 29?
Yeah.
So his good years are only a few more years left before he will have to probably wind down. I like him as a player. I really like him as a player, but I prefer to work with younger players. Younger players.
How about the Japanese leagues or the K League, for example, for Asian football like Chanathip and many.
I think so. I think that's a realistic target. We've seen people like Chanathip do really well in Japan, right? So, and I know the J League is doing a lot to bring ASEAN players in. So well done to them. They are quite clever in the way they are trying to approach that. I think that's what we should do. I think that's what we should look at. J League or K League being the stop for a lot of these players. We saw a lot of Indonesian players going to Korea because of the coach. That's a good sign. You need to be able to have coaches that can open doors for the players, which comes back to my other point about our Japanese coach. If he's not so high profile, he cannot pick up the phone and say, I have a really good player. Well, you put him in there. But you could see, like the Korean coach has done it. 2 or 3 of his players he's put in Korea, so he trusts them, he works with them, and of course he wants them to play in Korea, so when they come back and play for Indonesia, they're strong. So he has an interest in it. I think this is what is sorely missing. I think this is the trick. I think if we can get those sort of coaches that believe in the players and make the phone call and say, please take this player, I think a lot more will happen.